What makes someone truly evil? Is it the ability to kill without remorse? Is it the willingness to betray those closest to you? Or is it something darker, the capacity to look into the eyes of an innocent person and destroy their life with a smile on your face? Today, I'm going to tell you about a woman who did all three. A woman so cold, so calculating, so utterly devoid of humanity that investigators, prosecutors, and true crime experts have called her one of the most evil women in American history. Her name is Pamela Hupp, and over the course of just 5 years, she murdered her best friend, likely killed her own mother, sent an innocent man to prison for life, and lured a disabled stranger to his death, all while maintaining the facade of a friendly suburban soccer mom. This is the story of pure, calculated evil hiding in plain sight, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand why Pam Hupp deserves that title. Let's start with the murder that began it all. 55 stab wounds, a best friend's betrayal, and blood money. December 27, 2011. Betsy Faria trusted Pamela Hupp with her life. They were best friends. When Betsy was diagnosed with terminal cancer, Pam was there, driving her to chemotherapy, bringing her meals, sitting with her during her darkest hours. Betsy thought Pam cared about her. She had no idea she was befriending a monster. That night, Betsy Faria was stabbed 55 times in her own living room. The attack was so vicious, so prolonged, so filled with rage that the medical examiner said it was one of the most brutal murders he'd ever seen. The knife was still lodged in Betsy's neck when her husband found her body. 55 stabs. Let that number sink in. This wasn't a murder, it was a massacre. This was personal. This was someone who wanted Betsy dead and wanted her to suffer. And here's what makes it truly evil. While Betsy lay dying on that floor, stabbed over and over again, the person holding that knife was her best friend, the woman she'd trusted, the woman she'd confided in during her cancer battle, the woman she thought would help take care of her family after she was gone. Pam Hupp didn't just kill Betsy, she betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. She looked her friend in the eyes and stabbed her 55 times. Then she calmly walked out of that house, went home, and went to bed. But the evil didn't stop there, not even close, because Pam wasn't done destroying Betsy's family. She was just getting started. Here's what makes Pam Hupp different from your typical killer. She didn't just murder someone and try to get away with it. She orchestrated one of the most diabolical frame-ups in American criminal history. 4 days before the murder, Pam had convinced Betsy to change her life insurance beneficiary from her husband, Russ, to Pam herself. Think about that level of manipulation. Betsy was dying of cancer, vulnerable, scared, and Pam used that to steal $150,000 from Betsy's own family. When police arrived at the murder scene and saw Russ Faria covered in his wife's blood, Pam's plan was already in motion. She knew exactly how this would look. She knew police would suspect the husband, and she was ready to seal his fate. Pam became the prosecution's star witness. She walked into that courtroom, looked the jury in the eyes, and lied. She cried on command. She played the role of the devastated best friend perfectly. She told the jury that Betsy was terrified of Russ, that he was abusive, that Betsy had begged her for help. None of it was true, but Pam was so convincing, so manipulative, that the jury believed every word. This is what true evil looks like. It's not a monster with horns. It's a woman who can sit in a courtroom, sob into a tissue, and send an innocent man to prison for life, all while knowing she was the one who stabbed her best friend 55 times. Russ Faria had an airtight alibi. He was with 4 different people the night of the murder. Phone records proved it, receipts proved it, witnesses proved it.
But none of that mattered because Pam Hupp was such a good liar that she convinced a jury to ignore facts and convict an innocent man. Imagine the level of evil required to do that. To murder your friend, steal her money, and then destroy her husband's life by sending him to prison forever. That's not just criminal, it's demonic. And while Russ sat in a prison cell, knowing he was innocent but powerless to prove it, Pam Hupp collected her blood money and went on living her life. She went to work, she went shopping, she celebrated holidays with her family, all while an innocent man rotted in prison for a crime she committed. That's 4 years of Russ Faria's life that he'll never get back. 4 years away from his children. 4 years of being labeled a wife killer. 4 years of hell, all because of Pam Hupp's evil. But here's what makes her even more terrifying. She didn't feel guilty, not for 1 second. In fact, she was already planning her next murder. If you thought Pam murdering her best friend was the darkest thing she'd done, buckle up, because while Russ Faria was in prison, Pam did something so unthinkably evil that even seasoned investigators were shocked. October 2013, Pam's mother, 77-year-old Shirley Newman, mysteriously fell from her third-floor balcony and died. At the time, it was ruled an accident. An elderly woman lost her balance and fell. Tragic, but these things happen, right? Wrong. Just like with Betsy, Shirley had recently changed her life insurance beneficiary to Pam. Just like with Betsy, Pam was one of the last people to see her alive. And just like with Betsy, Pam stood to collect over $120,000. Think about that woman. This woman allegedly pushed her own 77-year-old mother off a balcony to collect insurance money. Her own mother, the woman who gave birth to her, raised her, loved her. What kind of person does that? What kind of darkness exists inside someone that they could look at their elderly mother and see nothing but a paycheck? Vanderegger Selix, several witnesses reported seeing Pam at her mother's apartment shortly before the fall. Shirley's injuries were consistent with being pushed, not falling accidentally, and neighbors reported hearing arguing coming from the apartment. But because Pam had gotten away with Betsy's murder so cleanly, because she was so good at playing the innocent victim, nobody suspected her. The death was ruled an accident, and Pam collected another life insurance payout. 2 dead, 2 life insurance payouts, and a monster walking free, emboldened by the fact that she'd committed 2 perfect murders and nobody could touch her. This is what makes Pam Hupp truly evil. She didn't just kill, she killed for money. Cold, calculated murder for profit. And she did it to the people she trusted most, her best friend and her own mother. But Pam's reign of terror wasn't over. In fact, the most shocking act of evil was still to come. By 2015, Russ Faria had been exonerated. His conviction was overturned and he was granted a new trial. This time, the jury took only hours to find him not guilty. The truth was finally coming out. Pam Hupp was the killer. Investigators began circling. They were looking at Betsy's murder with fresh eyes. They reopened the investigation into Shirley Newman's death. Phone records, financial records, witness statements, everything was pointing to Pam. For the first time in her life, Pam Hupp couldn't manipulate her way out. She couldn't lie her way to freedom. The walls were closing in. So she did what only a truly evil person would do. She decided to murder again. August 16th, 2016, Pam Hupp drove to the home of Louis Gumpenberger, a 33-year-old mental and physically disabled man. She approached him with an offer. She'd pay him $1,000 if he'd help her with a quick job. All he had to do was pretend to be a 911 operator for a TV show she was producing. Louis needed the money. He was struggling financially, living in a group home, trying to make ends meet. So he agreed and got in her car. Pam didn't take him to a TV studio. She took him to her house. And what happened next is so twisted, so evil, that it's almost hard to believe. Pam handed Louis a note she had written, with instructions to kidnap someone. She gave him $900 in cash. Then she pulled out a gun and shot him multiple times, killing him in her driveway. She immediately called 911 and claimed self-defense. She said this random man had broken into her home trying to kidnap her, that she feared for her life, that she had no choice but to shoot him. But here's the truly diabolical part of her plan. The note mentioned Russ Faria's address. Pam was trying to frame Russ again. She was trying to make it look like Russ had hired this man to kill her in revenge for her testimony against him. Think about the level of evil required to do that. To murder your friend, murder her disabled stranger, and then try to frame the innocent man she'd already sent to prison once before. Louis Gumpenberger was a real person with a real life. He had family who loved him. He had dreams and hopes for the future. And Pam Hupp saw him as nothing more than
Nothing but a prop in her sick game, a disposable pawn she could murder and discard to save herself. This is sociopathy at its finest. This is evil in its purest form. But this time, Pam made a fatal mistake. She underestimated the police. When investigators arrived at the scene and started piecing together what happened, nothing added up. Why would an attacker bring a note with him? Why would he have exactly $900 in cash? Why would the note reference Russ Faria, a man who'd been exonerated and had no connection to Louis Gumpenberger? They pulled phone records and discovered that Pam had called Louis multiple times before his death. They found evidence that she'd withdrawn the exact amount of cash found on his body. They interviewed people at the group home where Louis lived, and they confirmed that he'd told them a woman was going to pay him to help with a TV show. Within days, the truth was undeniable. Pam Hupp had lured an innocent, disabled man to his death and murdered him as part of an elaborate scheme to frame someone else. She was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, and this time there was no manipulating her way out. The evidence was overwhelming. In June 2019, facing the death penalty, Pam Hupp pleaded guilty to Louis Gumpenberger's murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But here's what's infuriating. She's never been charged with Betsy Faria's murder. She's never been charged with her mother's death. Legally, she's only responsible for one murder, even though everyone knows she's killed at least 3 people, possibly more. Pam Hupp sits in prison today, and she's exactly where she belongs. But the damage she's caused is immeasurable. Betsy's daughters lost their mother and watched an innocent man go to prison for years. Russ lost his wife, his freedom, and 4 years of his life. Louis's family lost a son and brother who was murdered for no reason other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And who knows how many other victims there might be. Investigators have looked into other suspicious deaths connected to Pam, but nothing has been proven. Some believe her body count could be higher than we know. So why is Pam Hupp one of the most evil women in America? Because she didn't just kill, she destroyed lives with precision and calculation. She murdered her best friend for money. She likely killed her own mother for money. She sent an innocent man to prison and slept soundly at night. And when she finally got caught, she murdered a disabled stranger just to try to escape justice one more time. She manipulated everyone around her, police, prosecutors, juries, even her own family. She lied with ease. She cried on command. She played the victim while being the predator. True evil isn't always obvious. It doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it looks like a friendly neighbor, a caring friend, a devoted daughter. Sometimes evil wears a mask of normalcy and hides in plain sight for years. Pamela Hupp is that kind of evil, and her story serves as a chilling reminder that the most dangerous predators aren't always the ones you'd expect. If this case shook you like it shook me, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime. Drop a comment below telling me what you think about Pam Hupp. Is she the most evil woman in America, or have you heard of someone worse? Thanks for watching, and remember, trust carefully,
because evil sometimes comes disguised as a friend. Hit the like button and subscribe for more true crime stories. I'll see you in the next one.